Welcome. You're listening to the Malcontent News Russia-Ukraine War podcast, the show that cuts through the fog of war and updates you about the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts.
Hello, I'm Marina Yevshan, your host of the Russia-Ukraine War Report podcast, and today is August the 30th, 2024. It has been 3,868 days since Russia started covert military operations in Crimea, 10 years and 191 days since the start of the Russia-Ukraine war, 2 years and 188 days since Russia expanded its war of aggression, and 25 days since Ukraine counter-invaded Russia. Today's podcast covers the events that happened on Thursday and Friday morning. You will find the Russia-Ukraine war map helpful to visualize the areas discussed. There is a link in the podcast description. There are a lot of map updates today. The Russia-Ukraine war report is compiled by our team from around the world. Today's report includes information from our direct contacts and analysts in Ukraine, the Russian Ministry of Defense, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine morning reports, operational commands north, south and east of Ukraine, open source intelligence, our in-house team of analysts and geospatial experts, and pro-Ukrainian and pro-Russian mail bloggers and social media channels with a track record of trying to be accurate. We have one mission, the truth, because the truth matters. Here is my daily assessment. There aren't any changes from yesterday, so if you want to skip ahead, I won't mind. I won't even know. 1. Autocrat Vladimir Putin's order to recapture the Kursk region of Russia by October the 1st is unrealistic without redeploying additional assets from Ukraine. 2. Russia will maintain its attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure, continuing Russian crimes against humanity that started in October 2022, as outlined in 4 arrest warrants issued by the International Criminal Court. 3. The continued attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure are increasing the possibility of an accident at one or more of Ukraine's nuclear power plants caused by the permanent loss of external power connections. 4. We maintain the unwillingness of the Biden administration to permit Ukraine to use provided weapons for strikes more than 40 kilometers from the 1991 state border with Russia has forced Ukraine to develop its own deep strike capabilities, proving that escalation threats from Moscow are hollow. 5. The policy of escalation management implemented by the NATO alliance and the United States, and to a small extent Germany, is a complete failure that only encourages Russian acts of aggression, including more frequent and deeper violations of NATO alliance airspace and acts of espionage in Europe and North America. 6. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Russia has decided to ignore Ukraine's Kursk offensive and commit all available combat power in the Donetsk, New York and Pokrovsk areas of operation. This is the last day for this entry. 7. Despite the new increase in operational tempo, we maintain Russia has no strategic reserve available to mount an effective defense of the Kursk region, continues to suffer unsustainable losses, and has committed almost all of its available conventional forces in Ukraine. 8. We maintain the Kursk counter-invasion is strategically sound, despite Ukrainian forces lacking the resources to defend New York and Donetsk and the approaches to Pokrovsk and Solidovo. 9. We maintain that Russia will achieve the operational goal of capturing New York and Donetsk in 2024. And we further assess that for Ukrainian forces, an extended battle in an urban environment is ill-advised. 10. In our assessment, the risk of an attack on Ukraine by the armed forces of Belarus is low. 11. The Russian economy is weaker than reported. 12. Persistent delays in the delivery of promised military hardware, munitions and funding continue to prevent the Ukrainian armed forces from reaching their full combat potential. 13. We maintain the world is caught in the mutually assured destruction instability paradox. We start today's report with some housekeeping. Monday, September the 2nd, is a federal holiday in the United States, and our team will be taking the day off. There won't be a podcast on Monday because no one will be around to edit it, and there won't be a podcast on Tuesday because I won't have a script. But I will be back on the 4th. Moving to the action report summary. Yesterday, Russia carried out 215 discrete assaults, the largest number ever recorded in a single day. Through August the 29th, the 7-day moving average for daily attacks surged to 174, also a new all-time record. Almost two-thirds of the attacks were carried out from Donetsk to Vuhledar. The VKS, that's the Russian Aerospace Forces, carried out 59 airstrikes, dropping 86 bombs on civilian and military targets in Ukraine. Russian ground forces conducted approximately 4,000 fire missions using tubed and barrel artillery. The increase in assaults by Russian troops with minimal armor support and without a corresponding increase in artillery support indicates that Russia is depending on mass to advance. Russia launched 18 Shahed 136 one-way drones and at least one Iskander-M short-range ballistic missile. 12 drones were shot down and 4 more were disabled by electronic warfare. At least one Shahed hit an industrial facility in the Poltava Oblast. In the Kursk region, Ukraine controls 1,315.5 square kilometers, with another 300.5 in the grey zone, for a total area of 1,616 square kilometers. The breach widened to 95 kilometers and the depth was up to 36 kilometers. Ukraine controls 96 hamlets, villages, settlements and tactically significant areas, such as the Gazprom gas compressor and metering station at Sudzha. Of those, 33 settlements are under full administrative control. The Glushkovsky salient, where 2,500 to 3,000 Russian troops are isolated, is 559.5 square kilometers, a reduction of 2 kilometers from yesterday. Let's go into the details of what happened on the battlefield. This would be a good time to open up the war map on a second device and find the city of Sumy, that's in the northeastern part of Ukraine. There is a link to the map in the podcast description. Ready? Here we go. We begin in the Kursk region of Russia, in the Glushkovsky area of operation, or AO. The Russian Ministry of Defense, that's Armored, reported continued attacks by artillery and the VKS on Ukrainian positions in the border village of Krasnooktyabrski. Multiple independent sources have reported that Troitskoe has been under Ukrainian control since August the 19th. Based on those reports, we have assessed that Ukraine captured the village likely more than a week ago and adjusted the map. A resident of Tyotkina shared a video that we link to in today's situation report. There's more information in the podcast description. That the shopping district had been destroyed by artillery shelling and looting. Local residents report that looting by Russian troops has spread to Rzhava, Nizhny Mordak and Vysokoe. Quote, "They loot everything from their," quick sidebar, they mean the evacuated residents, "homes. Yes, we know everything, we see everything, and we stick our noses in because these are our houses. And the authorities know it too, which means we've already been written off, and nobody thinks of our return." In the Korenevo AO, Armored and Russian mercenary mail blogger Rybar reported fighting continued in the area of Komarovka. Rybar added that Ukrainian forces hold the initiative. NASA Fire Information for Resource Management Systems, also known as FIRMS, supported the Russian reports. The data suggested fighting had moved to the western part of Komarovka, and the VKS had conducted airstrikes on Vishnyovka, the 344th kilometer place railroad station, and Snagost. Armored also reported an airstrike on Byakhovo, confirming the Ukrainian presence after weeks of denials. Fighting also continued in Korenevo. We rarely disagree with the Ukrainian source Deep State, but the video released today showing fighting in the eastern part of Korenevo village is from August the 20th. This is the same date Ukrainian forces attacked a Russian armored convoy that retreated across the Krepna River. A new geolocated video showing a Russian drone attacking Ukrainian troops in Lgovka confirmed that Russian claims that the settlement was captured are false. Multiple Russian sources reported fighting continued in and near Kremenna, with no significant changes. The VKS conducted multiple airstrikes in the forested area south of Kalinov. We can only verify they hit trees, a lot of trees. In the Lgov Operational Direction, or OD, we had a rare moment of being aligned with our Russian counterparts who weren't sure about the status of Sheptuchovka. There continue to be reports of fighting west, south and east of the settlement and evidence of combat-related fires, but no firm information. Some Russian sources reported fighting continued in Malaya Loknya without evidence, while Armod and Rybar made no mention of the settlement. If you're wondering what happened to mercenary Melblogovo Gonzo, they have only provided vague reports. Russian Melblogo two majors claimed without evidence that fighting was ongoing in the area of Kamyshevka and Kireevka, and Armod claimed that Ukrainian troops in Novaya Sorochina were attacked by artillery. A Russian video showed that Ukrainian forces had advanced past Nechaev and Nizhnya Paravaya, and we coded both hamlets as under Ukrainian control. Russian propagandist Romanov Light initially confirmed the Ukrainian advance and then denied it. This answers the question of what happened to Chechen Akhmat. Act 1. Make a video in an area with no fighting, declaring a great victory. Act 2. Get wrecked by Ukrainian forces who learned the area is lightly defended by the 1st Akhmat TikTok Brigade. Act 3. Run away, and Ukrainian forces occupy the location previously controlled by Chechen Akhmat. The map was adjusted. In other news, multiple Russian sources reported fighting continued in the area of Cherkasskaya Porechная, but provided no evidence. In the Bolshoe Soldatskoe AO, NASA firms supported yesterday's claim by two majors that Ukrainian forces were in the area of Novosotnitsky. Fires were indicated in the eastern part of the settlement near the P200 highway and the western part of the village near Berdin farm. Armod claimed, without evidence, that fighting continued in the area of Martinovka. If you squint, they could mean an area north of Pushkarnaya. Several sources reported Ukraine was able to take military control of the areas south of Pushkarnaya, which was supported by at least one Russian report. Rybar stated that there was a significant increase in activity by Ukrainian reconnaissance and sabotage units, also known as DRG, near the village. Based on terrain analysis, we adjusted the map. In the Sudzha AO, multiple Russian sources claimed fighting was ongoing in Cherkasskaya Konopelka, while two majors reported that there were only artillery strikes. War correspondent Yegor Loginov with United States state media agency Radio Liberty reported that the security situation in Sudzha had deteriorated. Quote, "Sudzha is much more dangerous than it was a week ago. Russian troops regularly shell the town and the surrounding settlements with glide bombs and artillery." Unquote. Some residents are asking to be evacuated to Ukrainian territory because Moscow refuses to open a green corridor to support their repatriation. International humanitarian law forbids moving Russian citizens to Ukraine, even if they request it. Sudzha will have to become an active combat zone. Yesterday, Armod has readily admitted they are attacking their own citizens, reporting airstrikes and artillery fire missions on Zaoleshenka, Kubatkin and Rubanshina. Everything is going to plan. In the Sumy Oblast of Ukraine, the VKS bombed the Technologia packaging company and factory in the city of Sumy, sparking a large smoky fire. One civilian was killed and 8 were wounded. The Ministry of Environmental Protection and Natural Resources of Ukraine said that there was no danger to the water supply of Ukraine due to the fish die-off in the Seym and Desna rivers. Quote, "A preliminary assessment of water quality found that no excesses of chemical and highly toxic components were detected in the Seym and Desna rivers. This is organic pollution. Residents in Kyiv, Chernihiv and Sumy Oblasts are still prohibited from swimming, fishing or using water from the rivers."
You're listening to the Malcontent News Russia-Ukraine War podcast. Our team of journalists, researchers and analysts is funded by readers, listeners and viewers just like you. To support independent journalism, please consider becoming a patron. You can find us on patreon.com/malcontentnews.
Let's not forget about my home. Here is what happened in Ukraine, starting in the Kharkiv Oblast. In the Lgov, Russia carried out 8 assaults, including an attempt to advance into the center of Vovchansk with a mechanized infantry platoon supported by 2 tanks. The Russian formation suffered heavy losses at Korolenko Street and retreated. Fighting also continued in the area of Glboke, with no change in the situation. In the Kupianskoe, a Russian DRG squad broke through Ukrainian defensive lines northwest of Sinkivka, reached the school and raised a Russian flag. The Russian soldier tries to pick up the Ukrainian flag, drops it, and then runs for his life. Shortly after, Armad reported that Sinkivka had been captured. This was a classic Russian picture report. What's a picture report? Someone in the Russian chain of command ordered Sinkivka to be captured by August 30th. When it was clear that was impossible, they sent a squad to raise a flag in the northern part of the settlement to submit as proof that orders were followed. Moscow is happy, officers get their end-of-month territorial gain bonus and can simply report Ukrainian forces counterattacked. On the subject of counterattack, Ukrainian forces walked to the school and removed the Russian flag. Fighting was also reported east of Stepova Novoselivka in the direction of Kolesnikivka and near occupied Novoselivska. In the Luhansk Oblast, west of occupied Svatove, Ukrainian forces repelled Russian attacks near Stelmachivka, Myasozharivka, Novoyegorivka, Cherneshchina, and in the direction of Grekivka and Druzhelubivka. There were no reports of Russian advances. West of Kreminna, Russian forces carried over 20 attacks in the direction of Nevsk and Torske and in the Serebryansky forest. Now let's talk about the Donbass, where we start in the northeastern part of the Donetsk Oblast. Beginning in the Siverskoe, Russian troops attacked Ukrainian positions west of occupied Zolotarivka and southeast of Vyimka. In the Konstantinivka, fighting continued on the western edge of the canal district of Chasiv Yar and in areas of Klishchiivka and Andriivka. There is no evidence that Russian forces have crossed the Siversky Donetsk-Donbass Canal and occupied additional areas of Chasiv Yar. The situation in the Toretsk-New York AO remains very difficult, where Russian troops carried out 21 assaults. Russian claims that the settlement of Druzhba was captured are false. We did adjust the line of conflict 1 block west based on new geolocations. Heavy fighting continued on the edges of Toretsk in the apartment blocks northeast of the hospital. Russian and Ukrainian troops are mixed together in the northern high-rises. Fighting also continued on the edges of Zalizne. From the northwestern part of New York, Russian troops continued their efforts to advance to Nelipivka and in the direction of Sukha Balka. In southwestern Donetsk Oblast, we begin in the Pokrovskoe, where Russian forces continue to advance. Ukrainian forces continue to hold the northern flank at Novo-Alexandrivka, Vozdvizhenka and Mirolubivka. Russian forces widened their bridgehead in Hrodivka, but did not make any forward progress. It was a similar situation on the southern edge of Krasny Yar. Russian forces have occupied almost all of Novogrodivka, raising a flag at the coal mine complex on the northern tip of the settlement. In Pokrovsk, Ukrainian police drove through the streets announcing the immediate evacuation of the city. Up to 30,000 of the 65,000 residents reportedly remain. We know that's an impossible decision, but we urge you, please leave. Russian troops have likely occupied Marinivka and Mikhailivka and raised a flag on the mining waste heap between the two villages. Fighting continued on the eastern edge of Selidove, with no new advances recorded. Video from the center of the settlement showed it was mostly abandoned, with significant damage from Russian artillery attacks and airstrikes. In the Kurakhove, yesterday's attempt by Russian forces to reach Galitsinivka ended in failure. After heavy losses, the force retreated to occupied Memrik. There was no change in Krasnohorivka, where Russian forces remain blocked at the Lozova River. A Russian armored column of 17 vehicles tried to advance from the former settlement of Mariinka through Georgievka and suffered catastrophic losses. The formation came under fire as it approached the traffic circle on the T510 highway and then retreated. Artillery and drones destroyed 13 tanks, armored personnel carriers and infantry fighting vehicles. And yes, we link to the video in today's situation report. Fighting continued in Konstantinivka with no significant changes. In the Vuhledar area, heavy fighting continued east of Vodyane and southeast and south of Vuhledar. We're going back to Russia to talk about areas outside of the Kursk Oblast. In the Rostov region, the fire at the Atlas fuel depot in Kamensk-Shakhtinsky continued to burn out of control, with 6 of 32 tanks involved. Russian officials admitted they lack the resources to control the fire and are taking a defensive approach. It has been 13 days since Ukrainian drones hit the strategic diesel fuel storage depot in Proletarsk, and satellite images from Planet Labs shared by the United States state media agency Radio Liberty showed it was still on fire. We observed at least 32 of the 76 tanks at the facility as destroyed or severely damaged. Over the last 24 hours, the fire progressed west, setting at least 2 more tanks ablaze. At the time of recording, it was reported that up to 18 Ukrainian drones attacked the Kaluga region. That's all I know, because you know what Russia will say: all drones shot down. Then something blows up and burns for 2 weeks from falling debris. Here is my theater-wide update. Ukrainian officials announced that on January 1, 2025, the Druzhba oil pipeline that supplies Hungary, Slovakia and the Czech Republic will be closed permanently. On August 26th, Ukrainian pilot Oleksiy Munfesh-Mes was killed when the F-16 he was flying during Russia's massive missile and drone attack crashed. The Ukrainian Air Force reported he had intercepted 3 cruise missiles and 1 drone and was given his next target package when his aircraft disappeared. The only cause that has been ruled out is an attack by the VKS or Russian air defense. I haven't said this in a long time. We want to be first and right, but we will always put right over first. While the loss of the first F-16 is a blow, the loss of one of only 6 fully trained pilots could take a year to backfill. Josep Borrell, the outgoing High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy of the European Union, reported that national leaders could not agree on a policy for Ukraine using provided weapons to attack Russia. Quote, "In the end, the conclusion is mainly that it is a national decision, and the member states want to keep it as a national decision. And each one will make the decision that it considers appropriate. Ultimately, the decision means that nothing will change. Germany is adamant about not providing Taurus cruise missiles, and Italy, which has an inventory of Storm Shadow missiles, has already announced they will not authorize their provided weapons to attack Russia. The United Kingdom and France claim that the United States is blocking them from providing authorization. After the meeting, visibly frustrated Minister of Foreign Affairs for Lithuania, Gabrielius Landsbergis, declared that, quote, Russian planes are better protected by Western guarantees than Ukrainian ones. So far, no Patriot batteries that have been promised to Ukraine in Washington have been delivered. Landsbergis also claimed that no new ammunition packages have been delivered to Ukraine since June. Finally, United States President Joe Biden has been warned that if he does not allocate or formally reserve the $6.2 billion in unused presidential drawdown authority by September the 30th, the funds will expire. The same funds the White House and Ukraine's supporters fought for. And that's what we know. Join me again on Wednesday, September the 4th. Your support of my home, Ukraine, helps us make history and protect the future for all.
You've been listening to the Malcontent News Russia-Ukraine War podcast. To help keep us independent, please consider providing financial support by becoming a patron. Want on-demand news in your hand? Download the Google News app and make Malcontent News one of your favorites to receive breaking news updates. Thank you for listening.